The alien princess believed human warriors were just tales, until she came face to face with one. From her earliest days, she had been surrounded by stories told by elders, scholars, and wandering travelers. But the ones that fascinated her most were the tales of humans, creatures from a distant galaxy. Humans were described as strong, clever, and brave, capable of achieving things no Zephyrian could imagine. They could adapt to the harshest worlds, survive dangerous environments, and create wonders with limited resources. According to the stories, humans had an energy that could not be measured, a spirit that refused to be broken. Yet, for all their fame, humans were something she had never seen. To Princess Lyra, they were like the great legends of the old Zephyrian poets, exciting to hear about, but impossible to meet. Her tutors often reminded her that the stories of humans were meant to teach important lessons: courage, resourcefulness, and hope. But in the calm and orderly life of Zephyra, it was hard to imagine such beings truly existing. Zephyrians lived in harmony with their planet, relying on their advanced technology and collective knowledge. They had no need for warriors in the human sense. Life here was safe, predictable, and smooth. Yet Lyra's imagination could not ignore the tales. She would often sit in her chamber, staring out at the endless skies, wondering what a human might look like, how they spoke, and what they felt. One morning, as the twin suns of Zephyra began to rise, bathing the city in golden light, a strange signal arrived. It was a distress beacon, originating from a human colony far beyond Zephyra's sector. The palace advisors immediately recognized the importance of the message, but most suggested ignoring it. "It is too far," they said. "Humans are nothing to us, we have our own duties." But Princess Lyra felt something stir inside her, a mix of curiosity, excitement, and an urge to see the unknown for herself. "I must go," she whispered to herself. "I must see if humans are real, if they truly are as the stories say." Her voice carried a confidence she rarely showed in public, and she felt the thrill of adventure that she had only ever read about. Lyra began preparing secretly. She visited the royal hangars, where sleek ships hummed quietly in their docking bays. Her attendants were puzzled when she chose a small exploratory vessel rather than a grand cruiser. "It will be faster," she explained simply. "And I need to be agile, not noticed." She spent hours studying star maps, analyzing potential routes, and learning everything she could about navigating through unknown regions. She did not yet know what she would find, but the thought of seeing humans for herself was enough to push aside any fear. As she trained, Lyra remembered the stories her grandmother had told her. Humans were described as courageous, even in the face of danger. They could find solutions where others would see only problems. Their legends spoke of people who crossed barren deserts, sailed across stormy oceans, and explored planets no one else dared to step on. These stories were filled with hope and wonder, but also with a sense of mystery. How could humans, so far away, survive and thrive in a galaxy so vast? Lyra's first challenge came sooner than expected. The navigation simulations she ran revealed a nearby meteor belt that no map had fully recorded. Her ship's sensors could detect small fragments moving at incredible speeds. If she miscalculated, she could be caught in a storm of rocks that would destroy her vessel. She spent long hours adjusting her flight path, running calculations, and testing different maneuvers. Finally, she felt ready. The thrill of facing an unknown challenge, even a simulated one, made her heart race. On the morning of departure, the city of Zephyra looked more beautiful than ever. The towers sparkled in the sunlight, the gardens below shimmered with dew, and the sky was a canvas of soft clouds painted in gold and rose. Lyra took one last look at her home, feeling a mixture of sadness and excitement. She knew that what awaited her would be nothing like Zephyra. She did not yet know if humans were real, if the stories were true, or if she would return with tales of her own. The journey began smoothly. Lyra's ship glided out of the city's orbit, passing rings of floating energy crystals that surrounded Zephyra like a halo. She marveled at the sight, but her mind kept returning to the humans. She imagined them building homes on barren worlds, planting crops in soil that barely existed, and helping one another through challenges that seemed impossible. Each image made her heart swell with curiosity and admiration. As days passed, Lyra faced the solitude of deep space. She had companions on Zephyra, but here, among the stars, she was alone. The silence was profound, broken only by the soft hum of her ship's systems. In these quiet moments, she thought about what it meant to be courageous. Was courage simply facing danger without fear, or was it something deeper? The stories of humans suggested it was more than that. It was the willingness to try, to keep going, and to help others even when the odds were against you. One evening, as her ship passed near a glowing nebula, she experienced her first real test. A sudden pulse of energy from a nearby star temporarily disrupted her navigation systems. Panels flickered, and alarms sounded softly in her ears. Lyra took a deep breath and focused. She remembered the lessons humans were said to follow: observe carefully, adapt quickly, and think creatively. Using the tools at her disposal, she recalibrated the systems and steered her ship clear of the energy pulse. When the alarms stopped, she smiled to herself. This was what humans did. They faced the unknown and found a way forward. Lyra began recording her thoughts in a personal log, documenting everything she felt and experienced. She wrote about the beauty of the stars, the vastness of the galaxy, and the strange thrill of not knowing what would come next. She also wrote about the humans, imagining how they might react to challenges like this. In these reflections, she felt a growing respect for them. They were more than myths. Perhaps, she thought, they were examples of what any being could achieve with determination and creativity. The further she traveled, the more she noticed the small details that made the universe alive. Comets streaked across distant skies, colorful clouds of gas swirled in patterns that seemed deliberate, and tiny moons orbited far-off planets in perfect harmony. Lyra realized that humans must have explored places like this, studied them, and learned from them. And yet, despite all her preparation, she knew nothing could truly prepare her for meeting a human face-to-face. Weeks passed, and her journey continued through regions of space rarely visited by Zephyrians. She passed abandoned colonies of alien species, floating stations that had long lost power, and silent asteroids that seemed to tell the story of forgotten worlds. Each site reminded her that life in the galaxy was fragile and precious, and that humans, if they had survived this far, must have remarkable resilience. Finally, as her ship approached the coordinates of the distress signal, Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She was about to step into a world she had only dreamed of. The stories of human warriors, once distant and unreal, were now within reach. She took one last deep breath, steeling herself for what she might see. The myths she had grown up with were no longer just stories. Soon she would know the truth. And with that thought, Lyra's ship pierced the last layer of interstellar clouds, entering a region of space alive with activity. She glimpsed signs of the human colony, structures that glowed with soft light, fields of technology working in harmony, and small figures moving with purpose. Her heart raced as she realized that the humans were not just tales. They were real, and they were waiting for her to meet them. Princess Lyra, the young princess who had once thought humans were only legends, now stood on the edge of discovery. She had traveled far from home, faced challenges beyond imagination, and kept her courage even when alone in the vast emptiness of space. Soon she would come face to face with a human warrior, and her life, and her understanding of courage, would change forever. Princess Lyra's ship glided smoothly toward the human colony. From a distance, the settlement appeared small, but orderly, with structures that seemed alive with activity. Lights shimmered gently, reflecting off the metallic surfaces, and fields of technology hummed in perfect harmony. She marveled at the sight, feeling a mix of awe and nervous excitement. This was the place where human courage and ingenuity lived. Soon, she would see it firsthand. But before reaching the colony, Lyra had to navigate a region of space she had never seen. The charts of Zephyra were incomplete here, and there were anomalies that defied simple explanation. Strange clouds of charged particles floated in the void, and erratic bursts of energy from distant stars created flickering lights that danced like lightning. Her ship's sensors worked hard to keep track of every fluctuation, but Lyra knew that no instrument could replace careful observation and quick thinking. She recalled the stories of humans her grandmother had told her as a child. Humans faced dangers that could have destroyed entire fleets, yet they survived by relying on wit, teamwork, and courage. She wondered how they managed it, imagining humans calmly adjusting sails in violent storms or repairing broken machines with only the simplest tools. These images inspired her. She could face this unknown space not with fear, but with curiosity and creativity, just as the humans would. The first real challenge appeared unexpectedly. A region of floating crystal debris drifted across her path. The crystals glowed faintly, and their surfaces reflected light in unpredictable patterns. If she miscalculated her course, her ship could be trapped or damaged. Lyra carefully analyzed the movement of the crystals, plotting a path through them that required precise timing. She adjusted her speed, practiced small maneuvers, and relied on instincts she did not know she had. When she finally cleared the debris, a rush of pride warmed her chest. She had solved a problem without relying solely on technology, just as humans were said to do. As the ship continued, Lyra reflected on the nature of courage. On Zephyra, courage was often measured in calm wisdom and knowledge. But humans, it seemed, had a different kind of bravery. They faced uncertainty with boldness, yet not recklessly. They valued clever solutions, teamwork, and perseverance. Lyra realized that courage could take many forms, and that the human stories she had grown up with were not only tales of adventure, but also lessons about adaptability and thinking ahead. Her journey also tested her patience. She had expected her path to be straightforward once she passed the meteor belt, but space was full of surprises. Some regions were unexpectedly dense with cosmic dust, which interfered with sensors. In other areas, gravitational waves from nearby stars caused her ship to drift slightly off course. Each time, she had to pause, observe carefully, and make adjustments. The process was slow, but it taught her the value of observation and careful planning. One night, Lyra gazed out of the cockpit at the endless stretch of stars. She felt both small and alive. She thought of the humans she was about to meet. How did they face the vastness of space without fear? How did they work together to overcome challenges she could hardly imagine? She felt a growing respect for them. Humans were not just clever, they were resilient, able to find hope in the most difficult situations. She wondered if she could learn that kind of resilience herself. During the journey, she also kept a careful log of her experiences. She noted the movements of the stars, the behavior of space currents, and her own reflections. She wrote about the beauty of floating nebulae, the soft hum of her ship, and the thrill of moving through uncharted space. She recorded her thoughts on courage, adaptability, and curiosity. Each entry brought her closer to understanding what made humans remarkable. They were not defined by strength alone. They were defined by their ability to think, to cooperate, and to face uncertainty with optimism. Lyra's first direct encounter with a human-like challenge came when she navigated through a narrow passage between two massive asteroid clusters. The asteroids drifted slowly but unpredictably, and any misstep could trap her ship. She adjusted her trajectory carefully, feeling the tension of every calculation. The experience reminded her of the human stories she had read. They often faced impossible odds with calm determination. Lyra realized that intelligence and focus were just as powerful as physical strength. Humans were survivors not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever and persistent. As the hours turned into days, Lyra began to feel a subtle change within herself. The solitary journey through unknown space had pushed her beyond her comfort zone. She felt more confident, more aware of her abilities, and more curious about the humans she had yet to meet. She thought about the colony ahead, wondering how the humans lived, how they solved problems, and how they supported each other. The stories she had grown up with now seemed real, almost tangible. She imagined meeting one of these humans, speaking with them, and learning directly from their experience. One morning, her sensors detected a faint energy signature ahead. It was not strong, but it suggested the presence of a structure or settlement. Lyra's excitement grew. Could this be the human colony she had been seeking? She carefully adjusted her approach, slowing the ship and scanning for any obstacles. Her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with anticipation. She had come so far, faced so many challenges, and now she was on the threshold of discovery. As she approached the coordinates of the distress signal, she saw movement on the surface. Small, organized figures moved with purpose, carrying tools and devices. Lights flickered in patterns that suggested careful planning. Lyra realized with awe that this was not just a random outpost. It was a thriving human settlement. She felt a thrill of recognition. The humans were real, living exactly as the legends had described. They had built a community in a distant part of space, surviving and thriving where others might fail. Her thoughts returned to the tales of human warriors. They were said to be courageous, clever, and capable of extraordinary feats. But now Lyra understood that their true strength lay not in physical power, but in their mind, spirit, and ability to work together. Each person she glimpsed from her ship seemed confident, focused, and cooperative. She felt a sense of respect and wonder growing inside her. Humans were extraordinary not because they were invincible, but because they faced challenges with intelligence, heart, and determination. Lyra carefully prepared to land. The colony was surrounded by fields of technology she had never seen before, with structures that seemed to hum with energy. She adjusted the ship's systems, ran final checks, and steered toward a clear landing area. Her mind raced with questions. How would the humans react to her? Would they be friendly? Could she communicate with them easily? The anticipation filled her with excitement. She was about to meet a human face-to-face for the first time, and her life would change forever. As the landing gear touched the surface, Lyra felt a mixture of triumph and nervousness. She had crossed vast distances, faced unknown dangers, and relied on her own judgment to reach this moment. Now she was standing at the edge of a human world, ready to learn everything she could. She reminded herself to stay open-minded, patient, and observant. The humans she was about to meet were not only the subjects of legend. They were real beings with thoughts, feelings, and intelligence that would teach her lessons she could never learn on Sci-Fi alone. Stepping out of her ship, Lyra took in the sights and sounds of the colony. Humans moved with purpose, communicating with gestures, devices, and a language she had only read about in records. Everything seemed efficient yet lively, structured yet flexible. The air smelled faintly of technology and soil, a combination of nature and innovation. She felt a surge of admiration and curiosity. These were beings who had faced unimaginable odds and created something lasting and meaningful. Lyra's eyes scanned the settlement carefully. She looked for signs of leadership, of organization, and of problem-solving. Each detail reminded her of the stories she had grown up with. Humans were indeed remarkable, not because they were invincible, but because they adapted, cooperated, and overcame challenges through cleverness and courage. She knew that her encounter with them would be more than a meeting. It would be an education in what it meant to face the unknown with confidence, creativity, and heart. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt the thrill of true discovery. The myths were real, but reality was even more impressive. Humans were living, thinking, and thriving examples of what determination, teamwork, and ingenuity could achieve. She felt ready to learn from them, to observe, and to understand. The journey beyond Sci-Fi had not only brought her closer to humans, but had also revealed her own inner strengths. She was no longer just a princess from a distant planet. She was an explorer, a student of courage, and a witness to a legend come to life. As the sun set over the human colony, Lyra took a deep breath, preparing herself for the meeting that would change everything. She had journeyed far, faced countless challenges, and discovered the beauty and complexity of space. Now she was ready to meet a human for the first time, and the adventure of understanding, learning, and friendship was about to begin. Princess Lyra stepped carefully out of her ship, the soft hum of the landing gear fading as her boots touched the surface of the human colony. The air smelled different here, a mixture of warm metal, soil, and something fresh she could not identify. It was unlike anything she had experienced on Sci-Fi. Her eyes moved quickly over the settlement, taking in the structures, the people, and the activity. Every detail was fascinating. Humans moved with a quiet confidence. They were not large or intimidating, but their movements were purposeful. They worked together smoothly, carrying tools, adjusting machines, and guiding small vehicles with precision. Lyra had expected to see warriors, perhaps tall and imposing as her elders' stories had described. Instead, she saw ordinary beings whose presence somehow radiated strength. She felt a mix of curiosity and awe. These were the humans of legend, yet they seemed approachable, grounded, and deeply intelligent. As she walked toward the center of the colony, a man noticed her. He had an alert, kind expression and stood with a calm confidence that immediately drew her attention. His eyes were sharp, full of curiosity, but also warmth. He approached her slowly, hands visible and relaxed. Lyra realized with a start that this must be the human leader or someone important in the settlement. "Hello," he said in a clear, welcoming voice. "I'm Captain Elias." "You must be the one who arrived from Sci-Fi." Lyra inclined her head. "Yes, I am Princess Lyra. I have come to learn about humans and their ways." Elias smiled gently. Then you've come to the right place. We have much to share, and perhaps we can learn from you as well. Lyra felt her heart lift. He did not seem threatening at all. Instead, he radiated intelligence and kindness. His presence made her feel both comfortable and excited. She had imagined human warriors as fierce and untouchable, yet here was one whose courage seemed to come from understanding, knowledge, and composure rather than force. Elias gestured for her to follow him, leading her through the colony. Lyra's eyes darted around, absorbing every detail. There were small gardens carefully tended amid the buildings, machines working in harmony with people, and energy fields that powered devices silently. Humans moved around these systems with confidence, adjusting, repairing, and improving. Everything seemed alive with ingenuity. As they walked, Lyra asked questions. How do humans manage to build so much in a place like this? How do you know where to start? Elias chuckled softly. We start by observing, by understanding the problem, and by thinking of the simplest solution that works. We do not rely on power alone. We rely on creativity, teamwork, and patience. Every challenge has a solution if we are willing to look for it together. Lyra nodded slowly. She was impressed. On Zephyra, many problems were solved through technology and rules, but humans seemed to rely on understanding and flexibility. Their ingenuity felt different, more personal, and more adaptable. Soon, they arrived at a control center, a hub of activity filled with monitors, devices, and humans coordinating operations. A small issue had arisen, a malfunction in a water recycling system that supplied the colony. Several humans were trying to fix it, but the problem required careful observation and adjustment. Elias stepped forward. Show me the readings, he said. The humans handed him the data. He scanned it, noticing a small irregularity that no one else had seen. Then, with calm precision, he adjusted a few settings. The system hummed, then stabilized. Lyra's eyes widened. The problem was solved quietly, efficiently, and without any struggle or shouting. Humans are amazing, she whispered to herself. Not because they are strong, but because they can see what others miss and act wisely. Elias noticed her glance and smiled. Ingenuity is just as important as strength, sometimes more. They spent the next few hours exploring the colony. Lyra saw humans repairing machines with limited tools, sharing knowledge freely, and encouraging one another. They worked not out of fear or pressure, but out of mutual respect and curiosity. She watched as a group of young humans experimented with a new energy device, laughing when things went wrong and celebrating small successes. Their enthusiasm reminded her of Zephyrian children, but with an added layer of cleverness and determination. Lyra felt her admiration deepen. The humans she had feared might be intimidating or dangerous were instead intelligent, kind, and deeply capable. Their strength came not from dominance, but from adaptability, cooperation, and careful thinking. She realized that this was the essence of the human spirit that her elders had described. Later, Elias took her to a training area, but it was unlike any combat zone she had imagined. Humans were not practicing fighting, but skill development, problem-solving exercises, and physical challenges that encouraged coordination and quick thinking. They moved in teams, helping one another and solving puzzles that required both intellect and cooperation. Lyra joined in hesitantly at first. She was unsure how her Zephyrian skills would match up. But soon, she found herself enjoying the activities. She observed how humans approached problems, slowly, carefully, and with creativity. When she struggled, a human beside her offered guidance, not criticism. When she succeeded, they celebrated quietly, with smiles and encouragement. She felt a warmth she had never experienced on Zephyra, a sense of connection and shared purpose. As the day passed, Lyra realized that the legends she had grown up with had underestimated humans. They were not just capable of great feats. They embodied values she had never fully appreciated: empathy, teamwork, patience, and resilience. These were qualities that made them strong in ways her people did not always understand. Elias noticed her thoughtful expression. You are learning quickly, he said. It is easy to underestimate what humans can do, but seeing is different from hearing. Once you witness it, you understand their spirit. Lyra nodded. She had witnessed it. Every action, every interaction, every problem solved had shown her that humans were remarkable. She had come seeking warriors, and she had found something even more powerful: wisdom, ingenuity, and heart. By evening, the colony gathered for a communal meal. Lyra observed humans sharing food, stories, and laughter. There was no tension, no hierarchy dominating the space. Everyone contributed in some way, whether by cooking, cleaning, or entertaining. Lyra felt a sense of harmony that she had never experienced in royal courts. Humans, she realized, were strong not because they fought, but because they nurtured and supported one another. During the meal, Elias invited her to sit beside him. "I hope your journey was not too tiring," he said kindly. Lyra shook her head. "No, the journey has taught me much already, and meeting you and your people, it is more than I ever imagined." Elias smiled. "Then you are ready to learn the ways humans face challenges. It is not about winning or losing, but about seeing solutions, helping others, and trying again when things fail. Courage is not only in action, it is in thought, in patience, and in kindness." Lyra absorbed every word. She thought of the nebula, the crystal debris, the drifting asteroids, and the strange energy pulses she had navigated alone. She realized that she had already begun to understand human courage. It was not a myth, it was a practice, a way of thinking and being that turned challenges into opportunities. As night fell over the colony, Lyra walked outside with Elias. The stars above were even brighter than on Zephyrah, stretching infinitely in every direction. She felt a profound sense of connection, not just to this place, but to the humans she had come to meet. "You see," Elias said softly, "humans are not invincible, but we face what comes with curiosity, patience, and cooperation. That is why we thrive, even in places that seem impossible." Lyra nodded. She understood now. Humans were warriors, but their battles were often against uncertainty, complexity, and challenge, not other beings. And in facing these battles, they displayed courage and ingenuity that even her people could admire. She looked at the humans moving quietly below, fixing machines, teaching children, and helping one another. She felt a wave of inspiration. If humans could do this in the far reaches of the galaxy, then she could learn from them, carry their lessons back to Zephyrah, and perhaps share these ideas with her own people. As she returned to her temporary quarters in the colony, Lyra reflected on the day. She had expected to find strength in size, power, or combat. Instead, she had found it in thoughtfulness, kindness, and creativity. Humans were extraordinary not because they could fight, but because they could think, adapt, and care. The stories had been true, but the reality was far richer than the myths she had grown up with. Princess Lyra, who had once believed human warriors were just tales, now knew differently. She had met one, learned from one, and seen a community built on ingenuity, empathy, and resilience. Her journey of discovery had only just begun, and she felt certain that the days ahead would teach her even more about the remarkable spirit of humanity. The morning sun rose gently over the human colony, bathing the settlement in warm light. Princess Lyra stepped outside her temporary quarters and took a deep breath of the fresh, crisp air. After the previous day's encounter with Captain Elias and the bustling colony, she felt a mix of excitement and curiosity. Today, she would observe humans more closely, learning not just about their skills, but about how they thought, solved problems, and worked together. Elias greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Princess Lyra. Today, we will explore how humans face challenges, not with force, but with creativity and cooperation. I think you will find it enlightening." Lyra followed him eagerly, her eyes scanning every corner of the colony. Humans moved with calm purpose, coordinating tasks with gestures, spoken words, and small devices. Nothing seemed chaotic, yet nothing was rigid. She realized that the harmony of their activity came from understanding, flexibility, and mutual respect. They began at the energy plant, a cluster of machines that generated power for the entire colony. Yesterday, Lyra had seen humans fix small issues, but today she would see the entire system in operation. Elias explained how each machine had its role and how humans constantly monitored for minor adjustments. "A human settlement thrives because we observe," Elias said. "We notice small problems before they grow. We listen to each other, share ideas, and find solutions together." Lyra watched as a group of humans detected an unusual fluctuation in energy output. One of them suggested a minor adjustment, another proposed a different approach, and together they tested both methods carefully. In a short time, the issue was resolved. It was not the result of force or dominance. It was the result of teamwork, observation, and thoughtful experimentation. Lyra felt a growing admiration. The humans she had come to see were problem solvers, not warriors in the conventional sense, yet their courage and determination were evident in every action. After the energy plant, Elias led her to the hydroponic gardens, where humans grew food efficiently despite the colony being far from a natural planet. The plants were arranged in neat rows, bathed in soft light, and monitored carefully for water, nutrients, and growth. Children were helping adults, learning techniques and asking questions. Humans worked together to ensure that everyone, including the youngest members, understood the process and contributed meaningfully. Lyra knelt beside one young girl who was adjusting a small irrigation system. "You are very skilled," she said gently. The girl smiled. "We learn from everyone. If something goes wrong, we try again together. Humans like to solve problems." Lyra smiled in surprise. She had expected children to play while adults worked, but here, learning and teamwork started early. She realized that humans trained themselves to face challenges from a young age, not through force but through curiosity, patience, and practice. Elias then guided her to the workshop, where humans were building a new communication device. Several adults worked together, each contributing a small part of the knowledge required. Lyra observed their methods carefully. Each problem was approached from different angles. Ideas were shared freely, and mistakes were treated as opportunities to learn rather than failures. She could hardly believe how efficient and thoughtful the humans were. They were not racing to finish. They were thinking, testing, and improving. Their courage was not in confrontation, but in facing difficulties with clarity and persistence. Lyra realized that humans were warriors of a different kind. Their battles were against complexity, uncertainty, and the need for cooperation. And in these battles, they were remarkably skilled. As the day progressed, Lyra joined in several activities. She helped monitor energy systems, assisted with gardening, and even participated in a small problem-solving exercise designed to improve colony efficiency. Humans were patient teachers, guiding her without judgment, and she felt increasingly inspired. During a break, Lyra and Elias sat on a platform overlooking the colony. "Captain Elias," she said, "I came expecting to meet warriors. But what I see is something more subtle yet powerful. Humans are extraordinary because of their thinking, teamwork, and kindness." Elias nodded. "You are beginning to understand. Strength is not always measured by force. Sometimes it is measured by how we think, how we cooperate, and how we persist. That is the courage humans show every day." Lyra reflected on her journey so far. Her trip through space had tested her patience and judgment. Navigating the asteroid belts, managing energy pulses, and adjusting to unpredictable conditions had taught her resilience. And now, observing humans in their everyday lives, she saw the real essence of courage. Not in defeating others, but in solving problems, helping one another, and learning continuously. In the afternoon, Elias introduced her to a small team tasked with creating a new water purification system. The team faced a difficult challenge. The water source was inconsistent, and the materials were limited. Lyra watched in fascination as humans brainstormed, sketched designs, and experimented with different techniques. One idea failed, but instead of frustration, there was laughter and renewed determination. Another idea partially worked, and they refined it further. Lyra joined the discussion, offering a small suggestion based on what she had seen in Zephyra. The humans listened carefully, incorporated her idea, and celebrated the improvement. She realized that humans were not only capable problem solvers, but also generous learners. They welcomed new perspectives, valued contributions from all, and encouraged growth through collaboration. By evening, Lyra had absorbed countless lessons. She had witnessed patience, observation, creativity, cooperation, and kindness in action. These were the traits that made humans remarkable, and she understood now why her elders' stories had held so much truth. Humans were not legendary warriors in the way Zephyrians imagined. They were warriors of spirit, mind, and ingenuity. That night, Lyra and Elias walked to a quiet observatory atop a hill. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, and the twin suns of Zephyra shone faintly in the distance, though from here they were barely visible. Lyra felt a sense of peace, understanding, and inspiration. "Princess Lyra," Elias said, "I hope your visit has shown that courage is not only about strength. It is about facing challenges with intelligence, helping others, and continuing to learn. Humans thrive because we embrace these ideas every day." Lyra nodded. "I understand now." Humans are extraordinary not because they are strong, but because they are resilient, thoughtful, and compassionate. I have much to learn from them, and perhaps I can carry these lessons back to Zephyra. Elias smiled. That is the most important lesson of all. Strength alone does not create progress. Understanding, creativity, and cooperation do. Humans have learned this over centuries, and they continue to grow by helping each other and learning from challenges. Lyra felt a deep respect for humans. She had traveled far, faced the unknown, and witnessed their courage firsthand. The lessons she had learned would shape not only her understanding of other beings, but also her approach to leadership, problem-solving, and life itself. Before retiring for the night, Lyra wrote in her personal log. She described the humans' approach to challenges, their teamwork, and their innovative thinking. She noted how they celebrated small successes, learned from mistakes, and encouraged one another. She reflected on how different this approach was from Zephyrian methods and how much she could apply these lessons in her own life. Lyra realized that the journey was changing her in ways she had never anticipated. Humans were not only extraordinary because of what they could do, they were extraordinary because of who they were and how they lived. Their courage, patience, and cooperation were inspiring, and she felt honored to learn from them. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Lyra thought about the days ahead. She knew there were more lessons to learn, more challenges to observe, and more experiences that would deepen her understanding. But one thing was certain: humans were not myths. They were living examples of what could be achieved through determination, intelligence, and heart. And Princess Lyra, who had once believed human warriors were only stories, now understood the truth. Humans were real, extraordinary, and full of lessons that could change not only her perspective, but perhaps the future of Zephyra itself. The morning light fell softly over the human colony as Princess Lyra woke. Today would be her last day there before returning to Zephyra, and she felt a mix of excitement and reflection. Her journey had been long and full of learning. She had met humans, observed their ways, and understood their courage, ingenuity, and spirit. Now she wanted to absorb as much as possible before leaving to take every lesson with her. Captain Elias greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Princess Lyra. Are you ready for today?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, Captain, I want to learn everything I can today before I leave. There is so much about humans I have yet to understand fully." Elias led her to a communal workshop where humans were collaborating on various projects. Some were building energy-efficient vehicles, others were designing communication devices, and a small group was experimenting with environmental systems to improve the colony's gardens. The scene was vibrant and full of life, yet nothing was chaotic. Every person had a role, and each action contributed to a larger goal. "This is how humans thrive," Elias explained. "We work together, combining our skills, knowledge, and creativity. Every person's contribution matters, and every problem becomes an opportunity to learn." Lyra watched closely as humans approached challenges. When one design failed, no one complained or criticized. Instead, they discussed what went wrong, shared new ideas, and tried again. The patience, resilience, and cooperation impressed her deeply. It was a kind of courage different from anything she had seen on Zephyra, one that came from thought, collaboration, and determination rather than rules or authority. She was invited to participate in one of the projects, helping to improve the water distribution system. At first, she hesitated, unsure of her ability to contribute meaningfully, but Elias encouraged her. "Observe, think, and suggest. That is how humans learn together. Your ideas are valuable." Lyra examined the system carefully. She noticed a small inefficiency in how water was being routed. Tentatively, she suggested a minor adjustment. The humans considered it, made the change, and immediately saw improvement. They smiled and encouraged her. "Excellent observation," one said. "You have a natural eye for solutions." Lyra felt a warmth of pride and connection. Here, her contribution was valued not because of rank or position, but because it helped the group succeed. She realized that this was part of the human spirit, encouraging participation, learning together, and celebrating progress as a community. After the project, Elias took her to meet a group of young humans learning navigation and observation skills. They practiced mapping star paths and predicting energy patterns. Lyra watched as they worked in teams, teaching one another and solving small challenges. She joined them, sharing what she knew from Zephyra. The young humans listened attentively, tried her suggestions, and integrated her ideas. The collaboration filled her with joy. Humans thrived by sharing knowledge freely, learning from mistakes, and encouraging one another. By midday, Lyra was invited to join a meal with the colony leaders. The table was filled with laughter, conversation, and the sharing of ideas. There was no sense of hierarchy dominating the room. Every person's voice mattered, and everyone listened carefully. Lyra noticed that humans celebrated learning, curiosity, and cooperation as much as they valued results. Elias leaned toward her and said softly, "Strength is not always in physical power, Princess Lyra. Sometimes it is in wisdom, patience, creativity, and helping others. Humans are warriors of mind and spirit, and that is why we endure." Lyra nodded, understanding fully. She had traveled through the unknown, faced challenges, and now witnessed human ingenuity and spirit firsthand. The lessons were clear. Courage was not in conquest, but in creativity. Strength was not in dominance, but in collaboration. And success came from patience, observation, and mutual support. In the afternoon, the colony faced a small challenge. A communication relay had begun transmitting irregular signals, threatening to disrupt their coordination system. Lyra watched as humans responded calmly. They gathered data, brainstormed solutions, tested adjustments, and monitored the outcome carefully. Within a short time, the problem was corrected, and the system ran smoothly again. Lyra realized that this moment captured everything she had learned about humans. They faced challenges without fear, worked together to find solutions, learned from mistakes, and adapted quickly. Their courage was not loud or visible in dramatic acts. It was quiet, steady, and consistent. It was courage of the mind, the heart, and the spirit. As evening approached, Elias led Lyra to a high observation deck overlooking the colony. The sun set slowly, casting a golden glow over the settlement and the surrounding landscape. Humans moved below, finishing their tasks, teaching, and helping one another. Lyra felt a deep admiration and gratitude. She had come seeking human warriors, but she had found something even more extraordinary: wisdom, ingenuity, and a community that thrived through cooperation and courage. "Princess Lyra," Elias said, "your time here may be short, but I hope you have seen what humans are capable of. Strength is not always visible. Sometimes it is in our spirit, in our minds, and in our hearts. That is the true essence of humanity." Lyra thought of the journey from Zephira, the meteor belts, the energy pulses, the unknown stretches of space she had navigated alone. She thought of the challenges in the colony, the energy plant, the water systems, the gardens, and the communication relay. Every step had shown her the same lesson. Courage and strength could take many forms, and humans exemplified a form that was subtle, powerful, and inspiring. "I understand now, Captain Elias," she said. "Humans are extraordinary. They are not legendary warriors because of strength or fearlessness alone. They are remarkable because of their creativity, teamwork, patience, and heart. I will carry these lessons with me back to Zephira." Elias smiled warmly. "And I hope you will share them, Princess. The universe is vast, and there is much we can learn from one another. Humans thrive because we face challenges together, not alone. That is a lesson every civilization can embrace." Lyra spent her last hours in the colony reflecting and learning. She observed humans teaching children, repairing systems, and exploring small innovations. She joined in their activities one last time, helping with minor adjustments in the energy systems, suggesting improvements in the garden layouts, and participating in problem-solving exercises. Each action deepened her understanding. Humans did not simply endure, they improved, adapted, and encouraged one another to do the same. As night fell, Lyra prepared to depart. She stood at the edge of the colony, looking out at the settlement glowing softly in the starlight. She felt a sense of fulfillment, wonder, and purpose. Humans had shown her a way of courage and strength that transcended physical abilities. Their spirit, creativity, and collaboration were lessons she would carry forever. "Farewell, Princess Lyra," Elias said gently. "Remember, the strength of a being is not always in what they can do alone, but in how they think, how they adapt, and how they support others." Lyra bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Captain Elias. I will remember, and I will share what I have learned with Zephira." As she boarded her ship, she reflected on the journey from Zephira to this colony. She had traveled through uncharted space, faced unknown challenges, and met beings whose courage and ingenuity had inspired her. The stories of humans had been true, but the reality exceeded even the legends. During the return journey, Lyra began planning how she would share her experiences with her people. She thought of ways to teach Zephyrians about teamwork, problem-solving, patience, and creativity. She imagined new projects, collaborative efforts, and shared learning experiences. Humans had shown her that strength and courage could take many forms, and she hoped to inspire her people to embrace these lessons. As Zephyra came into view, Lyra felt a mix of joy and anticipation. She had returned changed, not only by the journey through space, but by the wisdom she had gained from humans. She knew that sharing these lessons could transform her society, encouraging innovation, cooperation, and courage in ways her people had not fully realized. Upon landing, she was greeted warmly by her advisors and attendants. They were eager to hear about her journey. Lyra shared the experiences of the human colony, describing their methods, spirit, and approach to challenges. She spoke of Captain Elias, the ingenuity of the settlers, and the lessons she had learned. Her people listened in awe, realizing that humans were not myths, but living examples of extraordinary courage and intelligence. Lyra continued to share stories over the following days, demonstrating the human approach to problem-solving, cooperation, and learning. She encouraged her people to observe, experiment, and support one another. Slowly, the Zephyrians began to embrace these ideas, inspired by the example of humans. Princess Lyra's journey had begun as a search for warriors, but ended as a discovery of wisdom, courage, and the power of collaboration. Humans had shown her that true heroism was not about fearlessness or physical strength, but about creativity, patience, and helping others. And so, the princess who had once believed human warriors were only tales now understood the truth. Humans were real, extraordinary, and full of lessons that could guide not only her, but also her people. She looked to the stars with hope, knowing that Zephyra and humanity might one day share knowledge, friendship, and a future of endless possibilities together. Princess Lyra smiled. The universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders, and now she knew that courage, ingenuity, and heart could guide any being through the unknown. She felt ready to face whatever came next, carrying with her the spirit of humans as a guiding light for the adventures that lay ahead.